But that's why I think that the heart of it needs to be like, what is the goal, right? Like, and I'd say if the critique that I would have of like the YIMBY or the abundance sort of movement in general is like more is not enough. Like, and that's why the goal, in my opinion, should be families, children, order, right? Like, I mean, one of my favorite scripture verses is in Zechariah chapter 8, right? Where God says, or he describes what Jerusalem is like, and he says like, old men and old women will again like sit in the streets of Jerusalem, and like they'll be leaning on their staff because of their great age, and boys and girls will be playing in the streets, right? And so to me, like that's the vision of the community that I want, whether that's in a cul-de-sac or whether that's in the city. It's like that's the thing that we need to be building more of. So it's not just like more, it's more like to what end, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think we want more to encourage and support families, children, communities, right? Like that I think would make it better.
Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to Moment of Truth, the podcast of American Moment. My name is Nick Solheim, and I'm the CEO of American Moment, and I'm very glad to have you back with us for another episode this week. I had a great conversation with Bobby Fijan, who is running the American Housing Corporation, which I love the name. It's very original. We had a great conversation about urbanism, why, young people should want to live in cities, how we can make it easier for them to do so, and what is the most optimal floor plan for getting married and having kids. So it was a great conversation. Before we go to that, we're going to take a brief ad break for Hillsdale College. Are you a staffer on Capitol Hill, or maybe in the administration, or in another job in Washington, D.C., but you want to continue your graduate education? Well, Hillsdale College has the solution. They're offering a part-time Master of Arts in Government program right here in Washington, D.C. They work with you on your busy schedule with evening and weekend classes and is conveniently located on Capitol Hill. All accepted students receive scholarships and many graduate within the first 3 years. I personally know many members of our American Moment Network who have loved this program and who have immensely benefited from it. And so I would really encourage you to check it out. If I'd graduated from university, I would do it myself. So to learn more, you can visit dc.hillsdale.edu and apply by November 1st to start classes this spring, or apply by May 15th to start in fall of 2026. And thank you to Hillsdale College for sponsoring this episode of the Moment of Truth podcast. Bobby, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Nick, I'm so glad to be here.
So you are we were talking just before we started here that you are an avid listener of the show, which I am deeply grateful for, but you are also an avid poster on this website that a few people have probably heard of called X.com. That is originally how I became aware of you. I don't think many people out there really understand or know what it is exactly that you do, aside from posting based things on the aforementioned website. So tell us a little bit about that, about your background, and how you ended up where you are today.
I'm the founder of a company called the American Housing Corporation, and we are building row homes.
It's a very creative name, by the way.
It is. It's an old school name. I think it speaks to the ambitions that me and my founders and the rest of our team has. So we're building right now row homes designed for American families in urban infill areas, and God willing, eventually we'll build more housing types. But everything is going to be built around how can we build in areas that are missing middle, slightly denser. Like how can we add families to areas where young people already live?
Yeah. And I'm missing a lot of backstory there.
Sure.
How did you originally get into that? Where did you grow up? What radicalized you on this question?
Sure.
Like, give me all that.
Let's see. So the first 4 years of my life, I actually lived in a dorm. So all my friends were older college students. So my parents were graduate advisors. My dad was at MIT. And so I grew up in that dorm there, next house. And then my dad switched into academia, and we moved around a little bit around the United States to Ann Arbor, and then to the Bay Area. And then we started moving around the country. I was homeschooled K through 12, which was, I'd say, like I was on the earlier cusp of people who went through that. And then I ended up going to the University of Pennsylvania. I was a super senior, and I thought that it would be a good idea to help younger Christians, I guess, like avoid some poor decisions that I had made earlier in like sort of my like freshman and sophomore years of college. So I ended up becoming the freshman small group Bible study leader. I met a young lady there. We started dating that first fall. A year later, we got engaged, and then we were married a year after that. So my wife and I got married in between her sophomore and junior year of college. And so because we were married there, I'd say unlike most other people at the University of Pennsylvania, I stayed in Philadelphia and ended up starting with a few other partners a real estate development company that built apartments in the Philadelphia area. So when you start something with very little money, you get to learn how to do kind of a little bit of everything. So it was a tremendous opportunity to learn like what it is like to learn leasing and management, and why you don't give your cell phone number to prospective tenants, and why it's so, and you learn to not pick up the phone and call like zoning attorneys, and you have to learn to read things by yourself. So I'd say like it was a terrific education.
In the school of hard knocks.
In the school of hard knocks. When I'd say most other people who come from more elitish schools tend to do just straight finance, and so I'd say my predilection is to understand things from a financial or mathematical sort of background. But the thing that I got to learn a lot in the School of Hard Knocks was how things like work. So there is a spreadsheet, and then there's how things work in real life. So I'd say where that sort of ended up coalescing into what I'm doing now is my wife and I lived in the city for a number of years. My wife got a job as a nurse at the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. And then, side note, I would say that for anyone who's an entrepreneur, having a spouse who is employed is a huge advantage. And it's one thing that I'd say I encourage anyone else who is ambitious or an entrepreneur is like, get married or don't put those things off. You can do it. It's certainly difficult, but like for two people to work hard together when they're young. I mean, I know you and your wife got married young too. Like I would say was just like a really wonderful, pleasant time that we both got to do. And also my company wasn't making any money. So she has health insurance, and she literally paid the bills and kept a roof over her head for our first couple years. But it enabled me to like work hard and reinvest what little profits we had into the company that I was working on. So we were there, and we ended up moving downtown to be closer to our church into the Rittenhouse Square neighborhood of Philadelphia. So we're going to a church called 10th Presbyterian. And the reason we started attending that church is because when we got engaged, another piece of advice is when we got engaged, an older couple told us, practice on other people's children. And there was only one church in the entire city of Philadelphia that was large enough to have a children's program.
Really?
Yeah.
That is shocking.
So this was like earlier in like the like Acts 29 sort of movement hadn't really quite caught on. So there were a lot of young people moving into the city. This was 2009, 2010. And so it was just a few of the older mainline type churches, which 10th was, that were large enough and frankly were regional to have people who were coming into the city with their children. But all the other young churches there was a lot of energy, but they didn't yet have kids. So when we were following this good piece of advice, there was one church we went to. There was a notice in the bulletin the first day we showed up that said, if we don't have volunteers in children's church, we're going to have to curtail hours or something like that. But anyway, it was extremely propitious. And my wife and I said, this is where we're meant to be. And so we were there for a long time. And so I'd say that was kind of like our foray into the city, into wanting to build communities around that. As we had our first child a few years later, I would say we realized like how hard it is to do that. In particular, how hard it is to raise a kid when there are so few people around you who don't. So I'd say that first year I'm not sure we would have stuck it out if we hadn't met a few other people after that who then had kids. And then as we all know, like babies are very contagious, and then
Yeah.
other people start to have kids around you. So I would say like, all of that stuff, I'd say, pushed me forward to where I am today. Now, there was a lot of ups and downs in my career, but in general, I would say the trajectory that I've found was like, I know how to build apartments. I know how to think about like investing. I learned enough from like the school of hard knocks, like why things are built the way they are. And I'd say the pluses and minuses of a short-term capitalism driven like incentives. And so I'd say over the last, 15 years, I've been on a mission of like, how can I start a company that is able to tackle this particular problem? Like, how do we
Yeah.
get people to be able to think like, I can have a kid and stay where I am and stay in my church and stay in my community. And so I'd say that is the mission that my company exists to serve. And I think it applies to everybody, right? One of the things I was telling my son recently is like one of the advantage of us being Christians is like the things we believe are good and they're also true,
Yeah.
right? So and they're true for everyone.
Yeah.
Um,
What is whether they like it or not?
it's true.
100% right. What I've never been to Philadelphia.
Sure.
What is it like?
Well, Center City, Philadelphia, and the thing that I love about it is it's very small. It takes you maybe 30 minutes to walk from one side to the other, and it is a very condensed city. It's the size of maybe like a New York City neighborhood, but you'll have 8 blocks from a very quiet row home street, not uncommon to what they have like in Washington D.C. You'll have like the Comcast Tower. So I'd say like the juxtaposition and the how condensed that neighborhood is, how condensed the city is in my opinion the part that's like really beautiful. So it's a very old city. It has um,
I mean, it's a very historic American
It is
city.
it is a very American city, and one of the things again that's kind of like driving my company and what we're trying to build is like I think like the 3-story row home is just like a very American thing of like
Oh yeah.
American cities. Like again, here in DC, in Boston, in
Annapolis.
Annapolis, like
Yeah.
all these different areas, and I think it is also one of the aspects that I believe is missing from some of the both Texas and California type cities where they just don't have the product quite as well built out. The cities aren't as
Yeah.
old, but to me, it is a missing thing. They're smaller units. They make things more affordable. The As I'm sure we'll get into later, the uh, the responsibility that places on good government is that when people are closer together, social trust is more important,
Mm.
right? And law and order is more important, right? Whereas my wife is from East Texas, everyone can do whatever they want out
Yeah.
there, and it's fine because everyone's on their own like bit of land.
Yeah.
There is law and order there too, but it just happens to be that like you don't. It's not as much of required. But like when you are on top of your neighbors, things have to be run well.
Yeah, you can't shoot tannerite in your backyard
No,
in Philadelphia.
you can't. No, you can't.
You can do that in Texas or in West Virginia,
Sure.
but not necessarily in Philadelphia. How many of these row homes have you built?
So overall in my career, I've built about 1,000 units, and I have,
Wow.
I'd say, I have done a lot of floor plan and data analysis work for a much greater number of apartments, which is Lyman Stone and I recently wrote a paper on the Institute for Family Studies, which was about how to have a broader impact on this particular kind of product. The company that I've started now, we are 16 months old. And I would say that we have a large number of projects in the pipeline. And I guess when I'm able to, I'd be much more excited, I guess, to share about that. But I'm excited about what we're building. The current company I have, though, it has like only a few projects that are coming out of the ground right now.
Yeah.
So
And so what distinguishes these sorts of row homes that you're in the process of building or hoping to build in the future
Yep.
as being specifically a place for families? Like what makes them special? And I totally agree with you, by the way. Like when I first moved to DC, I lived on Capitol Hill
Mhm.
and I loved it. I lived in one of those basement units
Right.
up on 11th Street. Um I loved it. It's wonderful. It makes for a beautiful neighborhood. I'm totally with you. But I want to know what make yours special.
So let's think about this from a first principles approach, right? So again, and Lyman,
He said the words. He said first principles.
Lyman and I did a study on this basically to sort of prove common sense. But if you go look in any one of the large new construction apartment buildings and you look at the floor plan, so if there's one thing that I'm known for on Twitter, like it'll never be X to me, it'll always be Twitter. But
Yeah.
I accept that name is changed. But
People started calling me a boomer for still calling it Twitter, so I've switched to calling it X. It's fine.
is my obsession with apartment floor plans. And so to me, like the reason why I think floor plans are important is because they make clear who something is for. It's like product, right? And so if you look at, say, like the apartment floor plans of all the new construction product, what you will see is ensuite bathrooms, large walk-in closets, and I think in most, particularly you'll see in 2 bedrooms, you will see equal-sized bedrooms. Right now, if you ask any parent, what is the optimal way to lay out a limited amount of square footage, there isn't a person in the world, especially if someone who's a young child, who would say, I think my bedroom should be the same size as my baby's, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say the main point of what makes a unit or a row home or an apartment more family friendly is more smaller rooms. Children do not take up much space. Real estate is expensive in the city. And so that to me is the key difference of like how you can make something for the city is put the baby in a small little area. Whether it's, all of us who know people who live in the city know that babies go in bathrooms, closets, small rooms. Like you want dark, you want quiet, you want like somewhere so they can go that isn't your bedroom. They might sleep in your room for maybe the first couple weeks, but like you want them to have a different space. And so to me, like that is the key of like what makes family friendly apartments. And I guess, and the last thing that I'll also say is kind of a definitional thing is I think the term of family friendly housing needs to be narrowed for whoever is talking about it. What I think about family friendly housing as it applies to the city is so that a couple can feel comfortable pulling the goalie. Because once someone has made that decision, only God knows how long it's going to take for you to have children. Could be right away, could be 8 years, could be never, but like you have made the choice to do that. And you have to be ready to have that baby in 9 months.
Yeah.
And so that to me is like what makes it family friendly enough such that someone can do it. And well, I guess my last sort of rant before we move on to the next thing is like that to me is what's really missing in cities. It's like I want there to be so many strollers, so many babies, right? I want it to be as common to see a stroller as you see someone walking a dog.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I actually would like more.
There we go.
I would like more strollers than dogs.
Right.
That is so true. I will confess there have been plenty of times, and if you're a dad and you've ever felt bad about this, I'm telling you to not, where we've rented an Airbnb and we had, 6-month-old baby or whatever, and they sleep in the walk-in closet.
Right.
Like you put the bassinet, your travel bassinet that comes in.
There's always like the little cover that goes over top, right, to black it out or something like that. Right. Yeah.
Well, I've never had to do that because there's like basically now I have put a towel at the bottom of the door, right? So that light front of the door doesn't get in there. But yeah, like that they do not take up a lot of space.
They don't.
They don't. You can totally do stuff like that, and you don't have to feel bad about it. Now, our almost 3-year-old, right, does not do that anymore. But when they're babies, like
still naps
you can do
multiple times a day, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, they still need a space to take their naps in.
Yeah.
Right.
So you were talking about, being totally obsessed with these floor plan layouts.
Yep.
What is the ideal layout for a family?
So I would say, again, it depends on what kind of a family, right? So when I think about...
Give me some different options.
Right. So I would say for the family who's looking to pull the goalie and say, we're open to having a child, to me, the key portion of that, like in the city, is like the unit itself needs to be small, right? Again, real estate is a dollar per square foot game, right? Like and to me, like the type of unit that is missing that I want to see more in the city are like 2-bedroom, 1-baths, which do not exist anymore. But a 2-bedroom, 1-bath is perfect for like a couple to have a baby. And the term that I've started to like use more is like, I want more apartments to be baby maybe apartments, right? You have an office.
I love that term.
Right? Right. And you can, and if you get pregnant, God willing, the baby goes in there. And to me, the most important thing about like keeping families and couples in the city is, I think one of the saddest things is, right, like if you find out you're pregnant and you live in the city and you live in one of these units that's not family friendly or not baby friendly, You call your mom and dad, you call your different friends, and what's the thing you do right after that? You go look on Zillow, right? Like, because we got to move. And you're like, well, we got to move now because we don't want to be giving birth and moving immediately. So you move like right away. But so to
literally did this exact thing.
And that's why I want to build to make that not happen, because the thing that should happen is like, just have your baby and then figure things out, right? Like, you already know where your church is. You already know where, like, if you have a favorite coffee shop, if you know work, like, just have the baby. You very well may end up needing to move out of the city because there are lots of other issues. Babies do get bigger. They have other sorts of needs. They want to be near grandma and grandpa, or they want to be near cousins. Like, those things are important. But for that first year, mostly you just need the same thing. And you and your wife, like, having like that continuity is just like better. The other silly example that I've started thinking about a lot is, I assume since you have little kids that your kids eat a lot of quesadillas. Anyway, my children eat lots of quesadillas, right? And the tortillas are never in the same spot in any grocery store. It's like one of the most annoying things when you go to a grocery store that you've never been to before. You're like, where are the dang tortillas?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're by the bread, sometimes they're in the back, sometimes they're by the produce. You don't exactly.
Sometimes they're in the multi-ethnic
That's
food
exactly
aisle.
right. Exactly. That's right. That's right. They are right. And if you need gluten-free ones, then they're
probably in a freezer somewhere.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Might have a different section. But that is to me one of the very small but like inconveniences of moving to a new place is, where are the tortillas? And if you live in an area, if you know where your grocery store is, you know exactly where it is. You can get through a grocery store that you've been in before and get your shopping done in 20 minutes. If you've never been there before, it'll take you at least 4 times as long. And that's a very small thing. And yet the cost of moving is way more than that. So if we can just keep people in place, they'll know where the tortillas are. They can stay at their church. They can stay at their community, keep going to the same soccer rec league, whatever it is. That to me is like what I want.
Yeah. Why? It might be a pretty hard sell for people starting families to stay in cities. Usually the tradition is, right, that when you're ready to do something like that, or maybe you've just done that, maybe you do your first year in a city or whatever, and then you move out to the suburbs, you get the cookie cutter house, all of that stuff. Why should somebody not do that?
Why should someone not do it? Oh, why should they not do that? Well, and it's one of the things why I've followed your podcast and mission is like, the city is always going to be the place where like young, ambitious, adventurous people move. And I think we want that to happen, right? Like, well, that is going to happen. And we want more of like conservative people to do that too. And so I don't mean to say that people won't eventually make that decision. But what I still think is better, which I think is resonant with both of our different positions, is like, when you are here working hard, doing different things, right? Like trying to make a difference, pull the goalie, right? That's all it is. Like, pull the goalie. And then if you have a baby, maybe it makes sense to stay. Maybe it'll make sense for you to move. So I don't think that it needs to be as big of a deal. And then also I'd say socially in general, that is more one thing. I want babies to be more just like, it's just like a normal thing. It's just like, they're just there.
Everybody does it.
Everyone does it. Like, and I think that's also the easiest way to like, convince people to have babies, right? Like, I think the over preaching about it, other than done from the pulpit, like that certainly has its place. But like the general convincing of people is not like, have you seen the fertility rate is this? Like, everyone needs to do this and get all worked up about it. That I don't think works. But what does work is like, you're just out and about. And again, similar to like the dogs for stroller things, you just see a lot of people with babies like, well,
it doesn't look that hard.
I can do it.
Yeah.
Right. I know that Tommy like somehow manages to make it work. So I guess I can. So I guess I don't think we need to convince people like that they have to give up moving out to the city to do it. But it's more just like, if you're 24, 25, 26, right, young, ambitious, like one would be good to get married. And if you're married, you might as well have kids.
If you want to stay in the city and raise your family there, you should be able to do that.
Yes.
It's like your basic.
Well, it is. Yeah, it is. And also the other thing is like, I would say there is an incremental portion of like, when there are 3 families who have like kids in the city about the same age, it is significantly easier to add a 4th and then a 5th, 6th, 7th. And that's what I found like at our church, right? So we were one of the first people in our cohort to have kids. and to live near our church. We lived about 4 blocks away. And the problem that we ran into in Philadelphia, which is probably similar to what we have in DC, is like our 2-year-old needed a place to run around, right? Like, and it's cold, right? And there was nowhere to go. So my wife went to the church section, was like, uh, there's a church building. Can we just like open it up and the kids just run around? So they said, of course. And then a few other moms came, and then suddenly there was enough demand to have a mom's small group, which then turned into a nursery school, which is still going, and then it turned into a kindergarten, but mostly it's still just a nursery school, which it was just like great for the city, and also again made it so much easier for Christian and some secular families too, because I think half the families there are not members of the church. But anyway, it made it so much better. Like if it was not for that, like I don't think anyone could just like have a kid in the city by themselves. And that and I other part I'd say is like there's no floor plan or housing type at all that can solve that problem
Yeah.
of just like raising a kid by yourself.
Yeah.
That just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, this has been a huge, because my wife's a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
Like this has been a huge, thing that she's had to invest time into. It's like building an ecosystem of women who are doing the same stuff.
Right.
And it's like, dude, I feel like her social calendar is way more busy than mine. I mean, it's like this is playgroup day, this is go to the library day, this is go to the playground day.
Sure.
Like she's got something every day of the week, man. What's so great about cities anyway? Like a place like Philadelphia.
Well, I'd say, I mean, why do young people move to cities? Because they're ambitious and they want to do stuff, right? And that's like where things happen. So either they want to make money or they want to have influence or they want to learn things or they want to meet people. I'd say like the city is always going to be a magnet for the young.
Mhm.
And
But the question that I'm asking is, are there things that have the potential to be aesthetically and spiritually better for you in a city than in a cookie cutter suburb?
it's possible. I mean, I would say like the city at its core is density, right? Like density to do commerce, density to like meet people, right? Like when you live and walk around an area like this, like it's easy to just like go get a drink after work or get coffee with someone else. Like that kind of serendipity is good and I would say it is better or it enhances like a community that has like shared values. So I would say like a city doesn't need to be only a metropolis. Like I think it could easily be um I would want like villages or other areas like in suburbs to be better too. What I think is a little bit difficult about some more of these suburban concepts is that you have to be very intentional about it. Like your wife has to do a lot of work to make sure she does that.
And
Right?
she has to drive to
Yes.
every single one of those places.
Yes.
There is none. I really like the point that you're making about serendipity.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's a huge,
But that's
huge part of this.
and it's why the bedrock of like the city needs to be or any community needs to be is there sufficient public safety? Right now, I would say like the public safety in DC is always going to be different than East Texas or West Virginia or
Right.
areas that are like not as dense. So you just run into more different people. So there is a certain level, I don't want to say like of there'll just be different things you just have to learn to be street smart on. And anyone who thinks that they're going to be identical is just like not realistic, right? However, we have certainly come to, I'd say, an environment where certain people tolerate too much, and that cannot be the case. If
Yeah.
we want cities to be places for families, they're fine for someone who is again like 22 to 32, like young, single, maybe married, who can just be street smart. But once you add a child, and mom is pushing a stroller and carrying the scooter, right, like over our arm, like you just can't really be street smart and just like get away quickly. Or there's someone just like squatting in the only elevator that like goes up and down to like the subway. So cities need to get better at those kinds of things.
Yeah. Do you think, the hosting of the National Guard is improving that? Do you think there's going to be better public safety that can make it
I
more likely
I
prospect?
think you're around here more like I don't know. I mean, I was
Well, I
at
mean, take Philly. But I know we haven't sent the National
Sure.
Guard there yet, but
Right.
like, what should these cities be doing to make it a safer and more prosperous place for families to be raised? And I know the answer is just as simple as like, I don't know, lock up criminals. That seems like a good idea, but Seems like there are some people who don't believe this. So
There is definitely a lack of common sense in some of this different like enforcement stuff. I'm not. I mean, yeah, I would say I think like the answers are fairly simple. I mean, it the amount of things that like my children and I have seen are just are not acceptable.
yeah,
And it's a shame. It is a shame. And as we were talking before, of like these cities are great places. Like they're the birthplaces of what we've done. Like they're the centers of commerce. There's where stuff happens. Like we cannot let them go into the trash. Right?
yeah,
Like that cannot happen. That cannot happen.
yeah. And so, on that note, how do our guys win these cities over? Like, if like what we're doing here at
Yep.
American Moment, right, is we're bringing all these young guys and gals, some of whom are married or have kids. We've had guys come and do the fellowship who have kids, and they bring them all out to do this, and then get their job in DC. Um, how do we take these places over,
It's gonna
make
have
them better?
it's gonna have to be little by little. And that's where I think that focusing on as a Christian, it's where I think like the church is best able to play like her part in that, right? Like a small or a church of any size with people again who obviously who share those values who say like, let's raise our kids together, let's make this stuff work. Like there may be some currents that are so large that that cannot be navigated, and yet like the church has stood against far greater things, right?
Mhm.
Like over 2,000 years, and it has been in like in those small tight knit communities that things can gradually go and be made better. And the other part, and as I said, like related to what I said to my son is the positive example that we can show of like of having children, raising our kids in places is um an example of like of the gospel of the church of like truth of like what is meant to be,
Mhm.
right? Like, and that is the positive vision for what we have of them. I mean, um I think that the work that you are doing is admirable, and but the way we're going to win these places too is for all the different people who you bring in, for some of them to get married, have kids, and stay and continue to have that impact, right? Like
Yeah.
if you bring in hundreds a year, and it's not like everyone has to be cannon fodder and stay, but some will, right? And that we can slowly like have that good effect.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the biggest limiting factors for my family in particular was cities are just so dang expensive to
Sure.
live in.
Yep.
We couldn't find a way financially at that point in time to make it work, which is why we moved out. But um, how do we make these places more affordable for people who maybe one parent wants to stay at home or they want to have more kids than they can afford at that point in time, which is also what I've always done. You're like
Sure.
never able to really afford
Sure.
kids. You just figure it out.
You do.
And the Lord provides.
He
But
does.
um, how do you make them easier to live in financially?
That's where I think the emphasis is on size, right? And why those second and third bedrooms need to be small, right? Again, if you look at the apartments that are built right now, right? DC has frankly done a really good job of building. I mean, you can see all the different like large glassy towers that are going up, and they're full of studios and one bedrooms, right? Which is fine, right? It has kept like the in like the Navy Yard and different places like that on top of Whole Foods. There's all these different units that go up. They're still quite expensive, and yet if they hadn't been built, those prices would have gone up even more. I would say that the same principle needs to be done for units that work for different levels of family. So that's why like units need to be smaller for the number of bedrooms. That's why we need small 2 bedroom, 1 bath, small 3 bedroom, 2 baths, 3 bedroom, 1.5 baths. Again, if you look at the floor plans and you look at like a 3 bedroom apartment in these different buildings, there'll always be like basically like 3 suites inside a floor plan. So it's like 1,400 square feet. Each bedroom is the same size. Each bedroom has a walk-in closet. Each bedroom has its own bathroom. And so because it ends up being like 1,400 square feet, the price is, $3 a square foot, $4,200. That's not affordable. But also, that's more square footage than a family needs, right? Like,
Right.
and that's why I like the row homes that are here in Capitol Hill. Elsewhere, like you'll see like the size of those units is they're still expensive, but it's still like a much better size, right? It's like in South Philadelphia, which is one of the more affordable like neighborhoods, urban neighborhoods in the city. or in the country is like there's a bunch of like 3-bedroom, 1.5 baths where people have lived for generations. And so I would say like it's about getting those sizes lower, and then also investing in the things that make like family life specifically better. So there's absolutely the point I'd say like where government and policy needs to not just be hands off. I think they need to be specifically hands on, and like the goal is not just more. The goal is like make things better for families in particular. That's why there need to be playgrounds and not dog parks, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why there needs to be like more local good schools or more education models that allow for people to start their own schools. But we need these types of things so that um, um, I would say the city is always going to be more expensive than the suburbs on a dollar per square foot basis on the house.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who choose to live in the city are choosing to sacrifice space for location, either so it's going to be closer to work, or it's going to be so they can continue to be in their church or something like that. Like
Yeah.
that's the trade-off that you're making, which works when the community that you're part of is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you really don't need that much space.
You don't?
I mean, so in my house, you've got like me, my wife, and then we have a toddler, almost 3 years old, and then an infant who just turned 1. We have like 1,000 square feet.
That's perfect, right?
That's all you need.
That is all you need.
Um,
My sister lives at 86 in West End on the Upper West Side of New York, and she has maybe that much square footage. And they have 3 kids, and she has been in the same women's small group for like 12 years, right? So like it's like for her, like the trade-off in space and like community is very large. Like she would be sacrificing, right? Like 12 years of relationships, right? Like to get a bigger house in North Jersey or Connecticut or something like that. And
yeah.
that might be decisions that I don't know what choice she's going to make, but those are the kinds of decisions that lots of people make. And the point which I think that we can be a part of, again, through church and through the different like communities are part of it, is making the communities like sticky enough and strong enough and worth it such that more families will make that choice
Yeah.
to stay.
I don't really know if this is your area of expertise, so I'm just going to take a shot in the dark on this. But have you done any thinking in terms of like architecturally what these places should look like?
Well, I've hired people who are supposed to be doing that.
Okay, well, just give me your vibes based answer.
So I'd say there's 2 different directions we could go. One is I have a and I know you were talking both to who's your friend who started Butterworth's? Bart, right?
Yeah.
Both Bart and in particular is one thing that he said that I liked, which was just that the incentives around capital do not align themselves to either like to beauty or to quality and aesthetics. And the same thing is true within real estate, right? Let's say the vast majority of capital within real estate is like very short term. And I think you'll see a good, call it like capitalist kind of critique of architecture or of housing is like someone is only building to build a financial asset, and they're not building to like build something that lasts long term. So
to provide a public good.
Right. They're just building because they want to build something that has a stream of cash flows that's $5 million because they want to sell a $5 million stream of cash flows to a pension fund, to an insurance company, to something like that. And that
I just makes me so mad.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna rant.
No, please.
We used to have much better rich people. We used to. Like they really cared, and sure, maybe they just cared about having their name on the bottom or whatever, but they cared that that beautiful thing was tied with them.
Mhm.
Or they cared about, like, you look at, we're in the middle of the World Series as we're recording this, but you look at the people who would, like, buy baseball teams, right? Back in the day. I don't really think this is the case anymore, but they used to buy them because it was a public good, because everybody in the community enjoyed it, and they also enjoyed it. And they really cared about actually providing those public goods to like normal people who lived in their communities. Nobody gives a shit about that anymore, man.
You know what? One of my favorite like quotes that's similar to that is right. I think it was like Charlie Munger who says like, "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome." Right? Like, and so the incentives have become short-term wealth accumulation,
Yeah.
right? Like
We
short-term
worship-
like private equity, right?
We worship mammon. That's the
we do. And the part that makes it more of a shame for those on our side is like there's no shortage of Republican or even aligned like real estate developers, and there's no shortage of like of aligned like real estate capital, and yet it doesn't seem yet to produce like better things. Like you would not find like you would apartment buildings look the same everywhere, right? Like they have the same exact look, whether they're in DC or Dallas or Frisco or San Francisco or Boston. If you looked at the building, and especially if you looked at the floor plans, you would not know what city you're in, and that feels strange.
yeah,
right?
dude.
That's
Yeah,
strange.
I want the gargoyle on the
That's
parapet or whatever. And again, I am not.
Right.
Everybody that works with me knows I'm like the least aesthetically knowledgeable guy in like able to explain what looks good, but I can look at something and be like, that's ugly.
Yep.
I don't like it.
I'd say the incentive is that it was designed. It was not designed by someone who cared that much if it lasted, right?
Yeah.
So and that I'd say the part is like where it's the incentives and whether it's like the rich people or whether it's the different capital. Right now we have capital that is mostly run in 7 to 10 year time horizons. So someone says my fund does this, and I've got to put it out, and I got to get it back. And that is the way that I'd say that is the limitation of capitalism. And where there are projects that are good, I guess if you've been to Dallas, you might have visited like Old Parkland, which is like right, like a beautiful project. And the reason that one's beautiful is because Harlan Crow could say like, we are going to make money in the long term. So we're just going to do things that are right and do things that look beautiful. And it turns out it makes money, but not everyone has that kind of long-term perspective. More would be better. But I would urge more capitalists to take a 20, 30, 40-year time horizon and not just 3.
Yeah, but even like aside from that, like I'm not even necessarily on the train of like this is a critique of capitalism, because we had capitalism 100 years ago and we still made beautiful stuff. You know, billionaires, or what would today be billionaires, still made beautiful stuff. One of the things that made me the most angry in the last 6 months was when they were talking about making Union Station, which I go to nearly every day, into this like urban hellscape. You know, I don't know if you saw the renderings for this. Dude, it looked like a mall. Like it looked like the Mall of America. It was so hideous and disgusting. And despite all the like homeless vagrants pissing in a corner and people ODing in the men's room, which I've been in the men's room like when that has happened at Union Station, you cannot deny it is one of the most beautiful buildings in DC. And they want to destroy it. Like it almost feels like they like making things ugly. And it just makes me so mad. I don't have the words to describe it, but it just feels wrong.
Well,
it feels wrong.
So when it comes to public dollars, that is one that like I have no explanation for. I've never worked on that different side. It makes me angry as well. But
like surely a private company like pitched the design and all of that stuff, right?
It was public dollar. Yeah, it's just I've since I don't work in government, thankfully, I don't have to try to make sense of things that just don't make any sense to me. So I don't understand that one, and I just have kind of given up. It's like I know the incentives are why things work in the for-profit or in the market rate thing. And what I will say is where this is called like where this is a critique of capitalism, or this is a critique of like of a certain kind of like mindset. It's all right. Let's agree that like beautiful things get higher rents, right? Prove it. That's really hard to do, right? And what we have as systems, like if you can't prove something, people just like assume that it doesn't exist, right? And it's one thing that I found to be true within like floor plans, right? So one of the things that got me all excited about floor plans and floor plan data was if you look at floor plans just like on an Excel spreadsheet, which is how most of them are designed, someone says 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 700 square feet, right? Well, I've been into 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 700 square feet that were nice, and I've been into 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 700 square feet that were terrible, but they look the same in Excel. And so the developer just says, I'm going to build this many of this one and this many of this one, pick it out of a menu, throw it together, architect design it, and then they output it. Because at the end of the day, what they're selling is a spreadsheet of cash flows to somebody else. And how it looks, I'd say, does not get captured. So anyway, I would say the there needs to be more. Again, it's another thing that I love about being a Christian is that we get to value beauty for its own sake. It doesn't need to just be like, show me the specific return. I mean, I'm convinced there is one, right? Like, of course it's the case that like, if someone were to build a building that is as beautiful as Union Station, right? Like, you cannot tell me that in 80 years, it would be worth the same as something that was designed terribly in 80 years, right? Like, but hard to prove. Hard to prove. We need people who are willing to do it, and then it's also true. Similar to Old Parkland, right? Like, of course it's better in the long term, right? And yet, you still need someone who says, like, they didn't do it for that purpose. It just, they did it for the purpose of making it beautiful, and then it turns out that it works.
Yeah, I'd like to think that if I were a billionaire, maybe this is why I'm not a billionaire, that if I were to spend 1-2% of my entire fortune to like make a building, I would make it the most beautiful building, and I would spend 3 or 4% of my massive fortune instead, because I'd want it to be the most beautiful thing. And when people walk by, wow,
sure,
and it has his name on it.
There you go.
That's really cool. And that is why you brought up Harlan Crow a minute ago, who is a patriot.
Yes.
Specifically, he is just a patriot for making the old Parkland Hotel, or the Parkland. I just totally lost. It is the Parkland Hotel.
I mean, it's Old Parkland. It's like the office. Old Parkland. Yeah.
Yeah. Why did I call it a hotel?
Trump did the hotel. He did the post office hotel, which is also a great project.
Yes. Also a beautiful building.
It is.
But he is a patriot just for building that, and for a great many of other reasons.
Sure.
But I'd like to think, if I were rich, I would do the same. But I guess you never know.
I hope you do. I hope you do.
Maybe that's why I'm not a billionaire.
No. I hope you become one, and I hope you do that.
So, it is sort of it feels like owning your house, owning property, buying a plot of land is a conservative virtue.
Sure.
Like everybody, that's sort of the American dream, right?
Mhm.
Is wanting to own property. How do you propose, like, I guess, what would you say to conservatives who are like, yeah, I just don't really want to rent, in the city. I really just want to own something.
I think you should, right? I mean, so one, I would want to build enough that the price of like owning does come down. The city is going to be more expensive. So I guess what I would, I guess, continue to come back to is you do things at different stages in life, right? And so I would say that when you are in the city doing the city things, if you can afford to buy. But if you can't, like, there are advantages that the city has, whether it's, by me living downtown when our kids were really little, my commute door to door walking, so it was completely predictable, was 7 minutes, which meant I could come home for lunch, right? Now, how much is that worth? Something, right? Like some value, right? So I would say that people can make those different decisions. I still expect that the vast majority of people, because this is ingrained into our way of living, and I think that it's a good thing, I think those people will eventually move out to the city, out of the city, where they have more space and they can have more control over different things. That makes sense. But for the period of time where they are younger and working harder, or just working more hours or doing more different things, I would say, like, just do it at that point. And then for those people who can figure it out, maybe they make a lot of money and they can buy like an incredible row home and make it work, or they just figure out how to make it work with less. Then I think the decision will become easier. But in the same way that when we're trying to convince one of our different friends to have kids, you don't need to talk about or worry about like, well, what about 7th grade? It's like, you'll figure that out later when that happens.
It feels so far from now,
right? It's so far from now. The only thing you need to worry about is like, you will be able to figure it out like over the next things. And then the part you always end up telling people is like, you'll make it work. I mean, you said your youngest is 1, and the thing I always tell to my new friends who are about having kids and they ask for different advice is like, in 6 months, you will look back and say, I can't believe I survived, but I did, because I can't remember the last time that I had more than like 4 consecutive hours of sleep. And yet you will be there, right? So just know that it's incredibly hard, and somehow you'll get there. And when you get to that point, you'll be in a better position to make other choices. So I guess that's what the argument that I would make to people is, don't worry about that too far away. Like, if you need to buy a house right now, make that choice and do that. But if you are in the city, and you're working hard, have a kid, stay, and if you decide we got to move, then move, right? But if it's working for you, make it work.
Yeah, this is actually how I sort of think the like Dave Ramsey model of thinking about your finances has actually been bad. Like,
Sure.
Maybe on the whole, like, it's been good.
Yes.
Hey, don't spend more than you take in.
That's right.
But he is like very insistent on, not renting,
Right.
buying houses, that sort of thing. And I think actually on the whole that is not always correct. And so I honestly think, like, if a lot of these row houses here on Capitol Hill were $300,000, and you could just like buy one if you had a normal job.
Right.
Well,
let's get our people paid more.
Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, whatever it is,
pay them more, something like that.
I basically think 80 to 90% of people would just do that. I think a lot of it is a cost, and then there's a safety problem, and then there's some people who just grew up in rural areas and like it better.
Fine. Right.
And that's totally fine. That's where I'm at.
Right.
I think so. Part of the cost problem is the fact that we don't have enough units like this. The other problem is we currently have a lot of both legal and illegal migrants who are filling a lot of these. What role does unfettered immigration play in housing costs?
I mean, the law of supply and demand is just like in play. It's like we have to build more in order to bring prices down. And obviously, like, if there are a few people, prices will also come down. So I think that is just true. Where it is a little bit different, or I'd say where there needs to be, I guess, like, tempered expectations, is that the neighborhoods that we're talking about, like this one, are not the ones where there's enough and like all different sort of policies that are put in place by so-called well-meaning folks on the other side, the cost of those are primarily borne by people who are not in their specific neighborhoods. Like, there aren't that many illegal immigrants living in Capitol Hill.
Right.
That's a problem for somewhere else. Right.
Yeah.
So I would just say, like, that is definitely true, that that if there were fewer people, prices would certainly be lower.
Yeah.
Prices would certainly be lower.
Yeah. And do you, in terms of like there was this, potential proposal that was a big deal on X a couple months back about using some federal land to build more low income housing. Thoughts? Does that solve the problem?
A joke that I've made frequently on Twitter is the Presidio is federal land in San Francisco, and I think that would be a phenomenal place to build a whole lot of housing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful area. There's a golf course.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that'd be a good spot.
Build more housing in general, or build Section 8?
It's a nice place to live if you've been there. So, like, I would live there. So whatever the cost,
I have been there.
I think it'd be
beautiful.
great. I would love to live. I would love to live in Land's End.
Yeah.
So
the first time actually I went to the Presidio was actually the only time I've ever been there was I think it was last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago. Did you ever meet Isaiah Taylor?
I have not.
Guy that runs Valor Atomics, but you know who I'm talking about.
I knew who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, so he took me out there. We just had like a long walk in the Presidio, and it was awesome.
Yep,
it's beautiful.
And
I've noticed that this has become a meme, like making it a high density. I don't know.
I've contributed to that meme. So I mean, like, realistically though, I would say, like, the federal government owns a lot of land, and they have a lot of different buildings, and they just do not use them efficiently. So it is certainly the case that that the federal government, I would hope, could play a role in just like increasing supply in general, because it does a lot of different negative things. One, like, I would say it imposes a really large cost on local cities in that, like, none of those areas pay any real estate taxes, right? And so they should be more productive. right? And I also think that it can, to our side, like provide like a very good positive example we want that to be. If there's a critique that I'd say that I think can come too much in our side, it's there can be a tendency too much just to critique when things go wrong. It's like, yes, crime is a problem. Yes, urban education needs to get better. But the best solution to that one is to positively show what it would look like better, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's why I'd say on a personal level, it's someone's like, have kids, right? Like, and raise a good family and do things appropriately. I think the best example of what, if we want like other states or cities to like see like the disparities, like, is to go pick a piece of ground and just like build a ton of stuff that's like nice quality, beautiful, right? Like well run. That is like the best possible way to own the libs, right?
Yeah.
Would be to just like build something awesome.
Yeah, people believe it a lot more when you do it instead of just saying it.
Oh, of course.
Like when they see it, with
Yeah.
their own eyes.
Yeah.
What is it that makes building more housing so difficult?
Where to begin? I would say so there's two different sort of problems there, right? Like housing is particularly difficult to build in places like where people want to live, right? So like it is much harder to build housing here in Capitol Hill than it is in West Virginia, where the land is like cheap, right? Like there's different. So in the problem in West Virginia is like there isn't labor to build it, or it's more expensive to ship materials out there. Here, it's that they don't let you.
Yeah.
And so the one that needs to be changed is like people should be able to build like more in areas, especially in areas where people want to live. And in the other place, like it is, I'd say the role, and I've spoken to a few people in my trip here, in the administration who are focused on how can we support um, technology and manufacturing companies to lower the cost of construction, whether through modular or panelized or different sorts of things like that. Those things are obviously good. Like we do need to build better in ways that we did in the past, like in the ways that like Sears Roebuck built homes. Like there are ways that we can do or should be able to do that kind of stuff. Things that are, you know, high skill American jobs, right? Like that is something that we can do well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we should be able to do well.
I've seen a lot of particularly like civil libertarian types where their answer to this is like, we should just cut a bunch of regulations and then it'll like be fine. And I think I'm sort of a based centrist on this issue where it's like, okay, yes, there are some regulations that are onerous, make it much more difficult for you to build good houses, and we should want that. But also, I don't want to destroy beautiful buildings to put like cookie cutter, X, Y, and Z. I want the things that you're building to be aesthetically
Yep.
pleasing, and so on and so forth.
Well, that's why I think that the heart of it needs to be like, what is the goal, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'd say if the critique that I would have of like the YIMBY or the abundance sort of movement in general is like more is not enough. Like, and that's why um the goal, in my opinion, should be families,
Yeah.
children, order, right? Like, I mean, one of my favorite verses, one of my favorite scripture verses is in Zechariah chapter 8, right? Where God says, or he describes what Jerusalem is like. And he says, like, old men and old women will again, like, sit in the streets of Jerusalem and like they'll be leaning on their staff because of their great age. And boys and girls will be playing in the streets, right? And so to me, like, that's the vision of the community that I want, whether that's in a cul-de-sac or whether that's in the city. It's like, that's the thing that we need to be building more of. So it's not just like more, it's more like to what end, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think we want more to encourage and support families, children, communities, right? Like that I think is would make it better. There will always be times where we need to balance the rights of, I mean, the extreme example is like if I lived in a single family neighborhood, like I don't think someone should be able to build like a drive through Starbucks next to me. That would be a noxious, horrible use. And I don't care how much like they would get paid in rent. It's like, you don't get to do that. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
You don't want the line stretching
no,
down
I
your
don't.
driveway.
No, I don't. Right. And I don't think that should be the case. Right. And yet, and so there obviously need to be regulations. The other part that I've also seen like recently is like there was this thing going around social media like that showed like some of the different like truly horrifying like Halloween structures that get put up, like I think HOA rules are good, right? Like people should not be able to put like extremely
You're gonna get me to go on another
demonic,
tear, man.
horrible things. Like it's like that should not be allowed, despite like your freedom of rights to do everyone's like, I don't think you should be able to do that. So there should, however, there does need to be like a balance of some stuff does need to get built, right, in order for areas to move on. And the consequence of that, again, I think like if the goal is correct, right, like what happens to areas when nothing new gets built is grandparents is that children cannot live near their grandparents, right? Like if the housing gets too high, then communities break down because your grandparents are there and their kids can't afford to stay and their grandchildren are somewhere else. Like that is the breakdown. So we need to build in order to not let that happen, right? Because family staying intact is more important than aesthetics, right? And is more important. So then starting, I think getting the values correct enables you to make those balance choices better.
Yeah, in my mind, the question is not whether or not we will have abundance. It's what kind.
Sure. Yep. I agree.
What kind.
It is.
Bobby, where can people find you and keep up with the important work that you're doing?
People can always find me on x.com, Bobby Fijan, BOBBYFIJN. That's my handle. I read most of my DMs. And my company is the American Housing Corporation.
Thank you very much for coming on Moment of Truth.
Fantastic conversation. I loved it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another fantastic episode of Moment of Truth, and thank you to Bobby for taking the time to sit down with me here for this conversation while he was in town. I greatly enjoyed it. I'm going to spend a lot of time thinking about the things that he and I discussed. It's applicable in all of our personal lives. We all need somewhere to live. He's a great guy, very good on x.com, posts a lot of very interesting stuff. I'm a huge fan of his and of the work that he's doing, so you should go check it out. Also, if you're listening to this and you are an investor type person, I know some of you listen, this is something that I think is totally worth investing in. So please do reach out to Bobby if that is something that you're interested in doing. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Moment of Truth, and we will see you next week. Moment of Truth is an American Moment podcast taped at the Conservative Partnership Campus Studios and is produced by Jake Mercier and Hunter Smith, with original graphics and title cards by Jared Cummings. Our intro song is A Minor Struggle by Ryan Serenich, and our website is AmericanMoment.org.